Hello YouTube, welcome to another League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, we're covering one of the best poking champions in the entire game, top lane Jayce.
I fight for a brighter tomorrow.
Jayce is a big time lane bully who's incredibly hard to deal with for those top laners who don't have any sustain. He's really solid in pretty much all points of the game, but he is definitely strongest in the mid game. He does however scale really well into the late game as well. With his range, high attack damage, and ability to gain attack speed, he's also a very quick tower killer. Then, as long as he's had a pretty solid game, he has the strongest mid-game poke of pretty much any champion in the game. We finish off his pros with his ability to reposition his team with his gate. This can get his whole team into a more favorable position so they can have a much stronger team fight. As strong as he is, he still has some cons, the first one being he has no built-in sustain. This means if he's against champions like Pantheon who have really strong poke as well, he could lose those matchups. He's then got no hard escape, which means he has to be pretty mindful of his positioning. Although he bullies the majority of top laners out there, he still has some very hard matchups. He's a pretty safe pickup early on in the draft, but he still has counters like everybody else, so you could still lose lane even if you are Jayce. For our Masteries, we go 12 Ferocity and 18 Cunning, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as our keystone mastery. Jayce has very high damage and some really solid combos, so with Thunderlord's Decree, he often has enough damage to completely kill people. Now there is one alternative if you are playing for the very late game, that would be taking Fervor of Battle. This overall would increase your damage output as long as you had some sort of attack speed and would add a lot more damage in team fights. Me, however, I play Jayce to win early mid game and I like Thunderlord's Decree. For our runes, we focus on maximizing our poke and adding some nice tankiness at the same time. We do this by taking attack damage reds, armor yellows, magic resist blues, and attack damage quints. If you were against an AD top laner, you could always opt for cooldown reduction blues instead, but usually we get stuff like a Black Cleaver and a Yumu's and Ionian Boots, so we don't really need the cooldown reduction from our runes. If, however, you didn't like getting one of these items, it would be a perfectly viable option. For our summoner spells, we always want to take Flash as our first. It's great for gap closing, escaping, and making plays. Then for the second summoner spell, Teleport's a great option. It will increase your lane control and give a lot more map presence. This will then allow you to split push for large portions of the game and still make it to team fights and objectives. Another great option is Ignite. This summoner is great for finishing off low enemies with its true damage. It's a really solid pickup against squishier champions, so you increase your chances of snowballing. So now for each of the abilities, starting with the passive, Hextech Capacitor. So basically for this passive, whenever you transform between your hammer and cannon, you are ghosted and gain 40 bonus movement speed for 1.25 seconds. This is great for engaging if you do switch from your cannon into your hammer to close that gap. Although to be perfectly honest, you have a gap closer anyways. It's really great for escaping as well, because when you do pop this, you get the bonus movement speed of course, then you can drop a gate, go through that, and get yet more movement speed. So now for your hammer version of your Q, To the Skies. This ability here is that gap closer. You dash to the target, deal a bunch of damage, and slow them for 2 seconds. So in short, this is great for closing that short distance, dealing a ton of damage, and applying a slow to your target so you can finish them off. This is a very important part of your combo, and we will look at that later. Now for the cannon version of your Q, Shock Blast. Shock Blast is the main reason Jayce is one of the best poking champions in the game. It has a long range, fast speed, some decent AoE, and a ton of damage. When you combo this with your acceleration gate, the range and damage is increased, which makes it even better than it already was. So the summary of your Q abilities, they are by far your best abilities, and we max our Q first. So now for the hammer version of your W, Lightning Field. When you are in hammer stance, whenever you basic attack, you receive some mana back. However, generally we do find ourselves in cannon form because it's a hell of a lot safer and we need to be to poke, so it doesn't really matter too much. As for when you activate it, well, every 1 second you do damage around yourself for 4 seconds. This, however, is based off of your AP, which we have none of, so it's not that big of a deal. Your cannon version of W is, however, a hell of a lot better. It is Hypercharge. This is what makes Jayce scale like a monster. When you have rank 5 of this ability, your attacks will deal 130% damage with 2.5 attack speed. This will do a ton of damage really quick and can be extremely devastating. Although your lightning field was rather trash, you still max this 1 second and it's just because of Hypercharge. With this max second, it will ensure your late game damage is amazing with your Mira mana. So now for the hammer version of your E, Thundering Blow. This is a knockback ability which can actually create a gap for you to escape, and also deals percentage of target's maximum health damage, as well as 100% bonus AD. Not too much else to say, it's great obviously against tanks who have a lot of health, as it deals an extra bonus of their maximum health. Of course, when you are getting ganked, make sure you hop into hammer form so you get increased movement speed, and then you can knock the enemy back when they get near you. The cannon version of your E is what allows you to make that acceleration gate. Now, the main version of this gate is to be used with Shock Blast. As we know, when you shoot your Shock Blast through the acceleration gate, the speed, damage, and area of effect go up. This is then also great for getting yourself or your teammates out of situations when they're being chased. Now, although Thundering Blow was pretty good, we do only need 1 point into our acceleration gate, so we do have to max this one last, as Q and W are much better skills. When you're in Mercury Cannon form, you gain new abilities, ranged attacks, and causes the next basic attack to reduce his target's armor and magic resist by between 10 and 25% for 5 seconds. Your auto attack range is 500, and the cooldown of switching between each is 6 seconds. When you transform your cannon into the hammer, you gain new abilities, melee attacks, and between 5 and 35 bonus armor and magic resist. This then causes your next basic attack to deal between 20 and 140 base plus 40% bonus AD, bonus magic damage. You also start with 1 point into this ultimate, however you cannot rank it up, but your basic abilities do have 6 ranks. As for the ability order, well, you focus on maxing your Q first, followed by your W, and then your E. Make sure you get that early point in your E so you can actually drop the acceleration gate to increase your Q's poke. W doesn't do a ton for you in the early game, so holding off till 4 is completely fine. Alright, so with all the abilities covered, let's look how to use those effectively together. So first is that very simple accelerated Shock Blast. So when you're in cannon form, use your Q Shock Blast first, and then place E acceleration gate in front of it. This will increase the shot speed, damage, and its area of effect. So your full burst combo is a little harder to pull off, but after some practice, it becomes really simple. So first, simply start by doing your accelerated Shock Blast combo. While still staying in cannon form, you'll want to activate your W, hypercharge, and then instantly switch into your hammer form. Then you use your Q to the skies to close the gap onto the target, and make sure you activate your W, lightning field, while still in the air. Once you land, you will have this lightning field on the enemy, and then you can use your 3 empowered auto attacks from that W hypercharge you used earlier on. After you've got off your 3 empowered auto attacks, finish off your enemy with an E Thundering Blow. So it sounds like a lot of abilities, but as long as you can do your Shock Blast and activate your W and go into hammer, then you're just staying in one form. This combo does an absurd amount of damage, and you can 100 to 0 a squishy target very easily. AP Malphite is easily one of Jayce's hardest matchups. You're going to want to get some early sustain because he's going to poke you down quickly with his Qs. Once he's level 6, it's hard to even sit in lane against him since he can insta-give you. Make sure you get your Hex Drinker early so you can hopefully survive that burst. Then there is Swain, another matchup that can give you some trouble. As long as you can avoid his snare, it should be a rather decent lane, but if he lands it, you're in trouble. Yet again, he is an AP champion, so make sure you grab that Hex Drinker early on. Yet again, here's Pantheon showing up in the hard matchups. His passive shield makes it insanely hard to poke him down with his auto attacks, and he can bully the crap out of Jayce with his Q, and even deny Jayce's farm. Our last painful matchup is Irelia. She's able to sustain your poke with her W, and has a hard CC. If she gets one of these stuns on you, she can start shredding you with her true damage. Try to keep at a distance at all costs. In the early game, your main priority is to get a lot of creep kills. Farming is one of the most important things to acquire gear, so make sure you're not missing any last hits. Jayce is a strong lane bully, so you should also be trying to kill your opponent. Keep harassing them with your accelerated Shock Blast combo, and hard engage when you know you can land a kill or get them to pop flash. Make sure you're not taking any bad trades, and most importantly, you're not dying. Getting behind as Jayce is a really good way to lose the game. He's very dominant if he is ahead, but the second he falls behind, engaged champions can shut you down. Mid-game is where Jayce really starts to dominate. Try to get the tower down by 10 to 15 minutes, then rotate mid and help get that one down as well. This is a great way to start snowballing the game. If you're putting out a lot of pressure and start getting camped in the top lane, make sure you communicate this with your team so they can focus on towers or dragon. If the enemy top laner then starts freezing his lane, roam into the jungle with wards and take camps from their jungler. It's also a good idea to start roaming mid and put pressure on that lane as well. Finally, if you have a team that can siege effectively, group up and start taking objectives using your poke. In the late game, keep sieging and taking towers as long as your team is ahead. The more towers you take down, the more you can roam around the map and put out a ton of pressure. Start grouping up a lot more with your team and put out a lot of pressure on the map. Force them to react to what you're doing or face the consequences of losing their entire base. Poke, poke, and then poke some more. With all of your armor penetration, you're going to be dishing out massive damage even to the tankiest of targets. Make sure that when the enemy team finally engages, that you already have a solid advantage. Our item build starts with either a Doran's Blade health potion and warding totem, or Longsword, 3 health potions and a warding totem. If you're really worried about an AP top laner, you may want to go for the Longsword and the extra pots, so you can turn this into a Hex Drinker. Otherwise, I usually opt for the Doran's Blade. For your first buys, make sure you get a tier really early on, so you can start stacking the mana. Then, if you are against an AP top laner who can out-damage you, make sure you get a Hex Drinker, and for your first actual item, you'll want a Yumu's Ghost Blade. For our core build, we want to have that Yumu's, turn the tier into a Manamune, then get the Black Cleaver and Ionian Boots. Of course, when level 9, make sure you also grab the Farsight Alteration. With this core, we have a lot of armor penetration, some nice mana return, and 40% CDR. For our item pool, Maw is a great item, considering it is good against AP champions, as it has a nice shield. Mercurial Scimitar is then also nice because it has magic resist on it, but an even better ability called the QSS, which can break CCs. If we feel like we need some more armor penetration, we can get the LDR, the Mortal Reminder, or the Duskblade. My favorite here is the LDR, but all three are fantastic items. So then of course is the Guardian Angel, a very solid late game item as you can come back to life. If we felt like we needed some solid sustain, the Bloodthirster is a great pick. Then finally there's Steraks, so we're not bursted as easily, and Banshee's Veil for stopping multiple spells. So for my favorite full item build, we take the core, add an LDR to have maximum armor penetration, and a Guardian Angel. Absolutely tons of damage, lots of armor penetration, and the ability to come back to life. If we were against a high AP team who had a lot of CCs, we could take our core, add a Maw, and then a Mercurial Scimitar. Jayce itemizes pretty well, so just pick the item you need for the situation you're in. So that covers everything for our top lane Jayce guide. I'd just like to thank you guys a ton for watching, and if you guys did enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace!
I don't know what you want. Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say